South Korea says the decision to impose restrictions on travel from China was unavoidable. Today, Beijing comes up with additional restrictions to stop transit visa exemptions for Korean nationals on the heels of its retaliatory short-term visa suspensions. Yoo-jin has the details.
South Korea says it had no choice but to impose travel restrictions on China.
President Yoon Suk Yeol says the decision to suspend the issuance of short-term visas for Chinese nationals was solely to protect those here in the country. He has asked the foreign ministry to explain our position to China and said there is no reason for this to cause discomfort in our two countries' relations.
We prioritize the health and safety of people in South Korea. We're aware that the virus situation in China is getting worse, so we had to consider the possibility of a new virus wave or variant originating from China. We had to make this decision because we're one of the countries geographically closest to China.
On the same day, Beijing announced that it is also going to require transit visas for South Koreans passing through China on the way to other countries, something they'd previously been exempt from. This means transit visas will be needed for travelers staying through a Chinese airport for longer than 24 hours. A day earlier, Beijing announced that it was suspending the issuance of short-term visas for South Koreans, citing what it called Seoul's discriminatory entry restrictions against China. But the South Korean health authorities will decide whether to extend these travel rules after closely monitoring the virus situation both domestically and overseas. Currently, the testing requirements are set to remain until February and the suspension of short-term visa issuance for Chinese nationals until the end of January. Meanwhile, out of more than 5,600 travelers from China who received PCR tests upon arrival last week, almost 1 in 5 tested positive. The good news is that this rate has significantly dropped. It was over 30% early last week, but has fallen more than 10 percentage points after travelers were required to show a negative COVID-19 test result before departure starting last Thursday. And South Korea's overall number of COVID cases is also showing signs of declining. The daily number of infections last week averaged around 59,000, down almost 10% from the week before. The virus reproduction rate fell below 1 for the first time in 12 weeks, meaning each infected person is transmitting the virus to less than one other person. But the numbers of deaths and patients in critical condition are still high. The average number of deaths last week was 57 per day, while that of severely ill patients was almost 600. Yoo-jin, Arirang News.